This story is gruesome, and I'll warn you, the details are disturbing. This is 36-year-old mother of four, Thessalonica Allen from Indiana. Apparently, she and her husband got in a fight over a social media post one night that made him think she was interested in another man. When he said he was leaving, she pulled out a gun and shot him in the arm. The bullet ricocheted into his spinal cord. Her two eldest kids, both under 16, heard the gunshot. They then reportedly watched their stepfather bleed out as their mom told them not to call for help. She then made them clean up the bloody scene and help her get the body into their car. Her plan was to then set the car on fire to destroy the body. Only it was too heavy for them to lift, so they brought him back inside. The next day, she bought an axe. After chopping off his legs, she made her two children stuff the body parts into a tote bag, but it was still too heavy to carry. Police ultimately found the body hidden in the children's closets. Why would a person do such a thing? We can't talk about crime without talking about the root cause: poverty and access to mental health care. A report from the National Alliance on Mental Health found that nearly half of the 60 million people struggling with mental illness in this country are going without treatment thanks to lack of insurance or access to care. And then there's America's utterly immoral income inequality. Our capitalist system has put more wealth in the hands of three men, Bill Gates, Warren Buffett, and Jeff Bezos, than the bottom half of the rest of our country combined. Experts say most Americans' dire economic straits, combined with the lack of mental health care, can lead to brutal, senseless crimes like this one. This all happened back in 2021, but she was just sentenced this week to over 60 years in prison. She won't be eligible for parole until she's over 80 years old.
Man, shout out to Angie over at Notice News for this content, but man, mental health is so real. Like, how can somebody come to want to amputate and do all this crazy stuff to somebody's body just because of a post? Now your kids ain't got no mom. Ain't no telling what type of situation you done created for them to be in because you was mentally messed up to want to do what you think you got high power to be able to say, hey, today's your day, it's time to go home. No, nobody on this earth got them type of powers. And that's crazy that you went to that far extent to bringing these kids involved who's traumatized by it now.
You want to tell us where the body is now? And get this over with? Get you back to the station?
I want to tell you about a notorious killer. One who got his inspiration from an unexpected source. This is the horrifying story of the Dexter Killer. A man named Johnny Altinger thought he had just met the woman of his dreams, but instead he fell into an absolute nightmare. Johnny had been talking to a woman named Jen online. They had been texting and emailing over the past few days, and Johnny quickly fell head over heels for her.
Well, damn, this sounds like it's going to be one of them crazy online you met somebody type deal. And who's gonna be the murderer though? Is he gonna turn out to be the psycho murderer, or is she gonna be the psycho murderer? But I'm gonna shut my damn mouth up so we can watch it. And if you haven't already, go ahead and hit that subscribe button, like, comment, let's get it.
Jen was super gorgeous. They met on Plenty of Fish, and her profile shows a beautiful brown-haired woman in a bikini lounging on the beach, and they had plans to meet up that Friday. Now, Johnny shows a bunch of his friends this gorgeous woman, and they honestly don't understand why she's into Johnny. Johnny is a little bit of a nerd who wasn't the most good-looking guy on the planet, but his friends are really happy for him because he's really a great guy. But one of Johnny's closest friends, Dale, is a bit concerned about their plans to meet up because Jen is refusing to give him the address of where they're meeting. She was only giving these really vague directions on how to get to her. She said you need to go through this garage and into a back alley so that she can guide him to the house without actually telling Johnny her address. But Dale kind of dismisses it because maybe she's just being extra safe meeting up with this stranger on the internet. So instead of freaking out, Dale just asks Johnny to please remember to text him the address of the place he's at when he gets there.
Well, damn, this sounds like it's gonna be one of them crazy online you met somebody type deal. And who's gonna be the murderer though? Is he gonna turn out to be the psycho murderer, or is she gonna be the psycho murderer? But I'm gonna shut my damn mouth up so we can watch it. And if you haven't already, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Like, comment, let's get it.
But something really weird happens instead. At 6:30, Dale looks at his phone and he's getting a call from Johnny. When he picks up the phone, Johnny sounds a little confused. He tells Dale that the woman he was supposed to meet just wasn't there. Instead, Johnny had gone to the garage that he was supposed to start at, and instead of this beautiful brown-haired woman, he found a man who was filming a movie. The man says he knows where the woman lives, and he tells Johnny that he needs to walk out of the garage and down a back alley to get to her house. Johnny thinks this is super weird and tells Dale that he's probably just gonna head home. So Dale and Johnny hang up.
Now at this moment, you gotta ask yourself, is it even worth it? Because this do not sound right. I mean, you see somebody filming, you going down alleys and stuff, man, come on, bro. Is it really worth meeting with somebody? You're supposed to meet somebody in a public place anyway. Why are you going to someone's house you don't even know? They can have all types of shit laid around, booby traps, crazy people stuff.
But the next time Dale hears from him is at around 7:30. Johnny had sent a super short email to Dale saying that Jen just got home and that everything was okay, so he was gonna head back that way and meet her. But Dale just can't shake the feeling that something is wrong. So later that night, when he hadn't heard from Johnny, he calls his cell and his phone rings a few times and then it just goes straight to voicemail. So Dale brushes this off and goes to bed. The next morning, Dale and Johnny had plans to go on a motorcycle ride together, and Johnny is a no-show. At this point, Dale is absolutely sure that something is wrong, so he and his wife decide to drive to Johnny's house. They get to Johnny's place and they knock with no answer, but they do see that his car is gone. But his motorcycles are still there, and it looks like someone has taken the covering off of them. This is when things go from bad to worse. The next day, Dale receives an email from Johnny. It says, "Hey there, I've met an extraordinary woman named Jen who offered to take me on a nice long tropical vacation. We will be staying in her winter home in Costa Rica. Phone number to follow soon. I won't be back in town until December 10th, but I'll be checking my email periodically. See you at the holidays, Johnny." Dale immediately knows something is very wrong because Johnny never signs his name at the end of his emails. At this point, Dale is completely fed up with this, so he decides to report Johnny missing. But when he gives police all the information he has, they won't do anything because it looks like Johnny left with a woman. But this is when something really concerning happens. Johnny's boss gets an email to his inbox where he says he's quitting to follow a new life-altering path. When his boss emails back trying to get more information, he doesn't get any response. But just as quickly as Johnny disappeared, he is back and all over the internet. All of a sudden, Johnny is active again on all of his social media accounts. He's posting updates on Facebook, and he deleted his Plenty of Fish account. But Dale still can't get Johnny to talk to him directly.
So this dude done met some scammers, man. He done met some scammers, and now it sound like they using his identity, so that's real crazy to hear that. There's people out here doing stuff like that to innocent people who are just trying to find love, happiness, and just to be able to say they sharing a part of them with someone that they really enjoy spending time with. And, this situation is all crazy, man. He should have went to his friend's house and talked to him and stopped him from going over there again.
So he gets really frustrated, and the cops still aren't doing anything. So he decides to take matters into his own hands. Dale and a few friends get desperate, so they head to Johnny's house again.
Hey, if you've ever gotten one of these texts, someone is trying to hack or scam.
And this time, they are able to find an unlocked window, and what they find makes things so much worse. What Dale discovers is not the apartment of someone who's about to go on a trip. They find dishes in the sink, rotting food in the fridge, but most importantly, they find his passport. When Dale calls police with this information, they finally start looking into his disappearance. Police look for his car at the airport. They call the airline to see if Johnny has flown in or out. They even call customs in Costa Rica to see if he had been through. But all of this is a complete dead end because he hadn't been to Costa Rica at all. Police start to get really serious now about finding Johnny. They ask Dale to give them the address of the mystery woman Jen, but he tells police there is no address, only vague directions to a garage. So police follow this string of clues that lead them to a perfectly ordinary garage. Nothing really stands out at first. They can't go barging in, so instead they talk to neighbors. Police start asking about this Jen woman, but neighbors had never heard of any woman named Jen. They start to find out that the owners have actually been renting this garage to a guy named Mark Twitchell to use for a movie he's filming. So police track Mark down to ask him a few basic questions. Mark is really cooperative and answers every question they have, but he tells police he has no idea who Jen is. Police ask Mark if they can look around, but they don't find any signs of Johnny. But when they walk around the back of the building, they start walking towards a door with a padlock on it. This makes Mark really uncomfortable, and he points to the padlock on the door and says it isn't his and that someone changed the lock. But whoever actually did change the lock made a crucial mistake. The lock part that actually gets locked is attached to the building from the outside, not the inside. So police were able to just easily unscrew the screws and the lock came right off. When police walk in the garage, the first thing they notice is the smell. It smells like something had been burned in there. The next thing they notice is a huge steel table from something you might see in an operating room or a butcher shop. They also find a receipt for rubber gloves, paper towels, industrial solvent, and industrial plastic sheets. This makes police super suspicious. But Mark has a really quick explanation for this. He says the movie he's making is a horror movie, and they had to use a bunch of fake blood for a scene that has to be cleaned up immediately with industrial cleaning supplies, or it attracts a lot of bugs. But police don't really buy this, so they bring him down to the station. Mark at first is really friendly and forthcoming, and he says that he makes his living doing movies on the side and selling Star Wars stuff on eBay. So after a few hours of questioning, they let Mark go. But there's one thing that police just can't get over. The odds that Johnny went missing in the exact same spot that this guy was making a bloody movie was just way too much of a coincidence. Police would later find out that there were a lot of coincidences like this involving Mark Twitchell. They find out that Mark is a huge fan of the show Dexter, who is a police officer turned vigilante serial killer, and wouldn't you know it, Mark's most recent movie is about a serial killer who targets unfaithful husbands by setting up fake online profiles, and when the victim arrives, instead of meeting their date, they're met with a killer in a mask who tortures them until they give them all of their passwords and bank account information. In Mark's movie, the killer gets away with murder by making the victim's friends and family believe they're still alive. Police decide this is enough cause to go back into Mark's garage. Mark actually agrees to let investigators back into the garage, but says that he absolutely has to tell them something.
So what y'all think, Mark is the killer? Y'all think he has something to do with this, or? Because it's just too much leading to him being the guy that killed this man for no reason. Talk about cheating husbands and making a fake profile, and all of a sudden you got a movie you want to be making, man.
Mark says that a bunch of weird stuff has been going on the last few weeks. He said his car has been broken into, and he had some papers and money stolen. Then he says his house has been broken into. But the weirdest thing is that Mark tells police that someone came up to him at a gas station the other night and asked him if he wanted to buy a car. But the car that the guy at the gas station was selling was a red Mazda hatchback, which is the same exact car that Johnny drove. The guy at the gas station said that he met a woman and he told Mark that they were going on a vacation. So Mark offers him like $40 for the car and the guy accepts it. Cops call BS on this entire story, but they have absolutely no choice but to let him go again. Police seize his house and his car, hoping that they'll find something, and they do. When they search, they find a book about serial killers and forensic science, and a guide to Costa Rica. But they also find something more sinister. Buried on some shelves, they find a terrifying black street hockey mask, and when police look closely at it, they find what appears to be dried blood. In the trunk of Mark's car, they find a huge blood stain and a steak knife that appears to have blood on it. And in the front passenger seat, they find Mark's backpack. And what they find inside turns the entire case upside down. They find a laptop. And when forensics get their hands on the laptop, they find in Mark's deleted files a confession. They find a 35-page document named SK Confessions, and when police read it, it absolutely chills them to the bone. The beginning of the document read, "This story is based on true events. The names and events were altered slightly to protect the guilty. This is the story of my progression into becoming a serial killer like anyone just starting out a new skill. I had a bit of trial and error in the beginning of my misadventures. Allow me to start from the beginning, and I think you'll see what I mean." This finally gives police enough evidence to get the warrant for the garage. When they get there with the crime scene techs, it seems super clean. But when they look closer, it's like something out of a horror movie. They find duct tape, handcuffs, a BB gun, and worst of all, they find a stun gun and a long metal pipe that is absolutely covered in dried blood. They also find full-length coveralls like exactly the ones that Dexter wears. Finally, they found a game processing kit. Everything in the garage was completely and absolutely covered in blood spatters. Mark Twitchell was arrested for first-degree murder on October 31st, 2008. It wasn't until 2010 when Mark finally led detectives to Johnny's remains. And what police found down there makes it absolutely known that Mark Twitchell is a monster. Even though Johnny was decomposed, they found clear signs of damage. There were cut marks all the way to his bones, signs of bones breaking and even sawing. Mark confesses to trying to burn Johnny's body, but it actually failed, so he dismembered Johnny and dumped him in the sewer. Mark actually had his next two victims picked out. It was his former boss and his ex-girlfriend's ex-boyfriend. Dale's persistence and Johnny's foresight to tell his friends where he was going saved lives that night. Mark Twitchell got 25 years in prison with no possibility of parole. He traded his life of vigilante Dexter crimes for a life in a maximum security prison.
Well, that shit was definitely weird for the simple fact. How did you, that's weird. How did you, being so cooperative, like they didn't think you was the one who probably did this? I mean, you up here acting like, oh yeah, go ahead, it's fine, it's cool. I'm doing this anyway, da. Like, you just all casually cool, like you didn't have nothing to do with this. Come to find out, you up here trying to be like a character in the book, man. A character in the book. And now look at you. And that's sad that there's people out here who mentally want to do shit like that to another person and even had his victims picked out, his next two.